Today I'm going to cover Chapter 16, Section 4, and I'm going to talk about bacteria that cause disease. Bacteria that cause disease are called pathogenic bacteria. There are many ways that bacteria can cause disease. I'm just going to mention a few of them. Number one, some bacteria produce chemicals that we call toxins. Your textbook actually refers to them as poisons, but technically they're referred to as toxins. So these are chemicals produced by the bacterial cell and released into the host. In some cases, the toxin is a molecule that's actually released, and it's produced by the bacterial cell. Sometimes that toxin is actually part of the cell wall in certain bacteria, and those are also called toxins. A second category is what we call direct damage to the host, and this is caused by the multiplication of the cells, the bacteria cells. And their physical presence in a body tissue. I'm going to talk about 4 specific types of bacteria that all cause food poisoning. So I'm going to list them on the board. So what we usually refer to as food poisoning is ingestion of food that's contaminated with some kind of bacteria that typically causes vomiting, diarrhea, cramping, water loss, and sometimes even death. So I'm going to list a number of bacteria. I think I have 4. Okay, so number 1 is a species I think I've mentioned before. It is called Staphylococcus aureus, and remember the term coccus refers to the fact that these are spherical bacteria. This is a bacteria that does produce a toxin and can cause severe vomiting and diarrhea. It is also a bacterial species that has developed resistance to many antibiotics, and you may sometimes hear this group referred to as MRSA, because there are some strains of Staphylococcus aureus that are methicillin resistant. Staph aureus. And this is a problem in hospitals where people go in for surgery, and because of the prevalence of this bacteria in hospital staff and other individuals, the person develops a infection with Staph aureus that might be resistant to bacteria, so it becomes very difficult to treat. A second bacterial species is probably one that you have heard of. So this is number 2. And I'm just going to give the genus. This is Salmonella. There's certain species of Salmonella that cause food poisoning. This particular bacteria is, I won't say common, but can contaminate poultry, eggs, and causes vomiting and diarrhea within a 6 to 24-hour period after ingestion. A third bacteria is one that also I think you've probably heard of. It's called E. coli. I'm abbreviating the genus, but it's actually Escherichia coli. This is a common bacteria in the gut. So there are some strains of E. coli that are very helpful, very useful to us. There are other strains, however, that can be rather deadly. So most strains are not pathogenic, but there is at least one that has been reported in the press going back several years, contamination in ground beef and so on. The strain is referred to as O157H7. That's a designation for a particular strain of E. coli that causes disease. And it's been found in ground beef that hasn't been cooked enough, also in produce that hasn't been washed thoroughly. A fourth bacteria, and I'm just going to give the genus, is Listeria. And this is an unusual bacteria because it can survive in temperatures that are common for refrigerated items. It causes vomiting, diarrhea, and so on. But another unique feature here is that the symptoms may not appear until, on average, about 30 days after ingestion. And so it's sometimes hard for the individual to remember what they ate a month ago. This is the genus of bacteria that Bluebell, the ice cream company, manufacturer, had problems with about a year ago, I think, a couple of years ago. Okay, that is all I want to talk about in section 4 of chapter 16.